Hello everybody, and welcome to another tutorial by Mason Alt for the Introduction to Programming class at North Hennepin Community College. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a JText field and how to take what is inside of that text field and store it to a separate variable. So what we'll do is go ahead and create a new JCreator workspace. I name mine text field example, as you can see right here. So since these things are a little bit more drawn out, I'm going to start pre-creating everything and then explaining it as we go. So, and I will comment everything that I add, so you'll see. So the first thing, just you import your events. We need to implement an action listener. We're going to create a J button. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to head and create a text field. So same thing like creating a J button, it's just J text field instead, and name it whatever you want. I'm also going to create a string for this. That way, what our end product is when this button is clicked, it's going to take what's ever inside a J text in this text field, and it's going to set it to this string here. So I'm going to set my default string here to "you haven't pressed the button yet." So inside of our init method, I always like the null layout. You can use whatever layout you want. You should know by now how to add buttons to a layout. The text field is no different from a button. So I'm going to use the null layout. So first we'll start with our text fields here. You type your text field in, equals new JText field, and then the first parameter is going to be a string. You can put your default in there. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have any parameters in here, but you're going to want some. If you left this blank, you just end up with like the smallest, tiniest little text box. And when I say text box, for example, on a web browser, this whole URL bar up here is a text box, okay? So if we didn't have any default parameters for this text box, it would literally just pretend that this text box here is extremely scrunched up, okay? And there's, you don't have any room to put anything or whatever. So for a null layout, you set how long you want your text field to be inside of your set bounds. If you're not using null layout, what you're going to do is there's two parameters, like I said. First one is going to be a default text inside of the text field. The second parameter is going to be the length of the text field. So if you wanted it to be 50 pixels long, you type in 50 after that, so on and so forth. But like I said, for null layout, I set that down here. So once you got what you want your text field to initially start with, go ahead and add it to your layout. Like I said, I'm using a null layout, so I just super simple. And then with a null layout, I have to set the bounds of it. So I'm putting it at an X. I'm setting this text field to an X position of 10, Y position of 10. I'm making it 250 pixels wide and 20 pixels tall. So there we go, we added that. Now we have to have something happen in order to capture the text or do something with this text field. We have to have something happen, and the easiest way to do that would be to create a button. So in this case, we're just creating a button just like you used to. So just button, whatever you named it, equals new J button, and then whatever you want your text to be, or if you want an image icon or whatever. The next thing is just add your button to the layout, add the action listener to the button, so the program is listening for the button when it gets clicked. And then, since I'm using null layout again, I'm setting the bounds. I'm putting this button at X position 50, Y position 50, making this button 150 pixels wide and 20 pixels tall. Next thing here is you have to add your action perform method because you implemented the action listener up here. And then so we have to create the action perform method just like we always have. And I put the button event here, so whenever this button that we created gets clicked, we're going to do some things. So if our event is the button, then what we're going to do is you have a multitude of choices. Obviously you could do multiple things, but we're just going to talk about text field right now. The two major things you're going to do with text field is going to be getting the text and setting the text. So as you can see here, we have our string from up above here, text field input. We're going to set that text field input to, and then the way this works is you type in whatever your text field variable is, so text field in this case. So when you're up here, the J text field, I named it text field. So you just do text field dot get text is the method. So this method is coming from the text field object, and what this does is it gets the current text inside of the text field and sets it to the text field input, the string. So and then that's one thing you can do. Otherwise you could set the text. So let's say, I don't know, we get this text, and then maybe we check that text for, I don't know, if it contains a word, or maybe we convert it to an integer and we check to see if that integer is within a certain range. And depending on what we find, maybe we want to reply to the user. You can do that in multiple ways. Typically the best way to do that when you're using a text field is to just change the text inside of the text field. So in this case, to do that, just like above, we just use our JTextField variable. So text field dot, instead of get text, it's set text. So we're setting the text. So we're changing this default text here to something else, or whatever the user has entered. So in this case, we just put it, I said you just press the button, because when you press the button, it's going to let you know that you did that. And then I just repaint every time the button gets pressed. That way everything gets regenerated. The only other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to just to prove to you guys that we are indeed saving something to this text field input. I'm going to draw that string. So I just put in the paint method, I put g.drawString, and I put the text field input variable string in there, and I'm setting it at 100 x position, 100 y position. So let me go ahead and run this real quick for you and show you what it looks like. So when we first start it up, as you can see, our text field starts off with enter default text here. So as you can see, enter default text here, and our button name right there. And obviously our starting string was you haven't pressed the button yet, and so it says you haven't pressed the button yet. Okay, well, let's just press the button, see what happens. So when we press this button, what it's going to do is, if we look down here again, it's going to get the current text inside of the text field. So it's going to grab this enter default text here, and it's going to set it to the text field input variable, which is a string. And then what it's going to do is it's going to set the text of this text field to you just press the button. And then it's going to repaint. And then what the repaint's going to force it to do is it's going to draw a string, and it's going to draw that text field input. And so this text field input is going to say enter default text. So let's go ahead and press it. As you can see, you just pressed the button, it appeared up here. That's what we expected right here. And then whatever was previously in here is now down here. So let's say Pokemon isn't cool anymore. We hit the button, boom. You just press the button, and then what we had is now drawn down here. And then some people may argue Pokemon is still cool. There you go. So as you can see, all you have to do is just know this get text and set text. Now if you look inside of the additional resources here, and then on Unit 3 text field is how to use text fields. If you scroll down a bit, till you get to the API here. This will kind of tell you what all the different things you can do. So obviously the setting or obtaining the field's contents, we just got the get text and the set text right there. Obviously this is all just creating the text field, which is what we just did. As you can see here, like I told you, your text field can be blank parameters, default string with the width of your text field, or just the width of your text field. So, and then these are the two methods I showed you today. There's others down here. So you can see that you can set whether or not the text field is editable or not. This might help. Let's say we heavily are relying on a program we enter in the user's name. Well, once we enter in the user's name, we probably don't want them to ever change that name, otherwise it might screw up our program down the line. So maybe you would set editable, you would, in this case, you can just click on it. Super easy. Boom. Public void set editable, and then your Boolean. So obviously it's going to be, true or false here. And then since it's set editable, you'd put in front of this your text string name. So in this case it'd be text string dot set editable, and then true or false. So that's how you kind of read this. So whenever you look at like the Java tutorials on the Oracle docs, it looks really complicated. It's not. You just have to know what to look for. Usually what it will tell you is a brief synopsis of what it's doing, all the different types of all the childs essentially of the text field. So as you can see, there's formatted text field, password field, combo box, spinner. That all is from the text field. So, and then you look down here, and then it'll kind of show you a basic text field demo. It'll usually let you download some type of code so you can get that code, even though it's super simple. And as you can see, it'll have a couple more things here. It'll show you how to handle the text field in events. So in this case, as you saw, we just did the string text, and then we did the text field dot get text. So that's just showing you kind of what I showed you. So you kind of got to read through it. The biggest things you want to look through is just go to the API, and you can see all the different things you can do with it right there. So that's the best way to understand what these things are, how to read them, because they're meant to be for people that want to get all down to the nit-gritty, very, very complex of everything in Java, but it's also there to help beginners as well if you just know how to read it a little bit. So again, we just created a button, and then as you can see, it just puts it down there. Super simple. And I'm going to make another tutorial on how to possibly take what you've put in this here and do something else with it. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.